Good morning, grade 11 students. For today's lesson, we're going to talk about the evolution to the traditional of the media. During the prehistoric time, life was simple compared to how we live now. The concern of the members of the community were food, water, shelter, reproduction, and the safety from natural occurrence of the wild animals. That was the period when the medium of communication was through oral language primarily. Each group or each tribe devised their own language to be able to communicate with each other. Communication was limited to a particular group only. Early people developed the sounds to make meaningful messages to another one. The members of the group agreed what a particular sound would mean. Oral communication was the primary medium of communication. The primitive people created sounds and symbols to refer to the materials world around them. They provided names for the food they eat, the source of the food to the land and the water. They provided words for the action they made. If one studies the development of the language in a particular place, one can trace the kind of life they lived during the early period. If one's analysis the Filipino language, the original language would reflect the culture of the early people. How did the early Filipinos live? Trace the native language. One will note that the clothing of the Filipino male was the bahag or the G-string, and the female wore tapis. A piece of cloth covered the lower part of the body without the upper clothes. So the women were topless. If one would trace the underwear, there was no native term for the underwear, meaning the early people only wore bahag or tapis or nothing else. When the Spaniards arrived, they were surprised to see topless women. So, the Spaniards covered the women with long skirts or the saya, loose blouses or kimona, or camisón as underwear, and a piece of cloth over their shoulder called a lampay. Men were made to wear loose camisa chino. Men were made to loose camino chino. Men were made to wear loose camisa chino and pants like the Chinese. Take note of the food preparation native Filipinos served during the meals: laga o boiled, crabs or ihaw, boiled meat or fish, tuyo, dried fish, daing, dried salted fish, tinapa, smoked fish. The concept of gisa or saute and prito or fry were influenced by the Spanish. The house of the early Filipinos was a simple one-room affair. The bahay kubo made of bamboo and woven nipa leaves. During the night, it was used a bedroom with mats spread on bamboo floor. During the day, the mats were rolled and placed in one corner of the room. During the meals time, a low table or dulang was placed in the middle of the room without chairs. The family squat on the floor, like Japanese and Koreans. The room was converted into a dining room. The vocabulary of the Filipinos was limited. There was no term for spoon, fork, because the Filipino ate with their bare hands. They used the coconut shell as a drinking cup. The media during early times were focused on oral communication, which was shared and understood by a particular community. We're done with the prehistoric age. Let's move on with the industrial age. Industrial age, which started in England and other European countries in 18th century, was marked by the shift of the agriculture and the handicraft economy to one dominated by the machine and the machine manufacturers. During this period, the British started to travel by train and traveling by train would take hours to reach the destination. So, storytelling became part of their travel. Canterbury Tales, a collection of over 20 stories written in Middle English by Geoffrey Chaucer, became significant because of people would use this story to do storytelling while traveling. The industrial age marked the use of iron and steel. During this age, new energy sources were used, including fuel and motive power like coal, the steam engine, electricity, petroleum, and the combustion engine. New machines were invented like the spinning jenny and the power loom, which replaced the use of human energy. The factory system was organized, which increased division of labor and specialization function. During this period, transportation and communication were developed like steam locomotive, steamship, automobile, airplane, telegraph, and radio. There was an increase of the application of the science in industry. The primary industries like agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, quarrying, extraction of minerals used the different discoveries in science. The manufacturing industry was the secondary industry that was developed. The manufacturing industry was the secondary industry that was developed. Raw materials supplied by primary industry were processed in factories into consumer goods. Different products were produced from processed goods. Energy producing industry like hydroelectric industry and construction industry were fully utilized. A tertiary industry was developed to support the primary and secondary industry. The service industry, banking, finance, insurance, investment, real estate, services, wholesale, retail, transportation, information, communication service, professional and educational promoted and provided the full development of the industrial age. During this period, printing flourished and education became mass-based. The radio provided a vast of means of communication which people from the urban to the rural areas. The telegram made communication faster, while the post office has kept utilizing the snail mail. The telephone was also invented to expedite communication for the people as the growth of different businesses. Third one, electronic age. In the last quarter of the 18,000, Thomas Alva Edison tried all kinds of experiments in electricity. Edison had limited educational background due to his hearing difficulty. After 5 years of formal education, he decided to quit in 1859 at the young age of 12. He worked as an apprentice telegrapher at the age of 16. He was creative, imaginative, and curious. Morse code was used in telegraph to send messages. Edison was able to invent a duplex telegraph which can transmit two messages simultaneously in one wire and print converted electrical signals to letters. These messages from the telegraph were called telegram. In 1876, Edison put up his own laboratory and machine shop to be able to explore and experiment on different inventions. He worked on the photograph and telephone at Menlo Park. However, it was Alexander Graham Bell who first got the patent of the telephone. It was Edison who was able to develop the carbon button transmitter, which is still being used in telephones and microphones. At that time, the telephone was not yet used as person-to-person means of communication. Edison also worked on the photograph, as well as development of the incandescent bulb. As he was able to commercially develop the phonograph, he also started the motion picture industry as well as the alkaline storage battery. The fourth one, New Information Age. In the early 1980s, the desktop computer arrived in the Philippines. During that time, there were no generic version of the computer. It was either a big IBM used in business offices or the Apple desktop. The programs were simple. There were no Microsoft programs. The word processing being learned was WordStar. Later, it became WordPerfect. The applications available then were limited. A decade after Microsoft came into the picture, it offered words processing, PowerPoint presentation, and Excel made computation easy. By 1998, the telephone was evolved into a portable gadget called the cellular phone. It was still heavy with antenna, and it can only be used oral communication. Another gadget was the pager, which was used by the most doctor so they can use and be reached easily. By the turn of the 20th century or the 2000, cellular phone become more compact and handy. The mobile phone now offered text messages, so it is now a talk and text gadget. A new features was added. The mobile phone now has a camera. People were excited with the new feature of the cellular phone. Within the first decade of the new century, the computer has gone a long way with the introduction of the internet. Communication becomes so fast and a lot cheaper. The computer also became compact and portable with the introduction of the laptop. The computer also included the camera as one of its features. So, during special events, netizens are able to record events like graduation, birthdays, and other activities. Now, you can use your module as your guide to answering those questions about prehistoric age, industrial age, electronic age, and new information age. Good luck!